Hey, welcome back. So what I'd like to do is just introduce you to the most common geographic data types. Oftentimes when you start working with GIS and different mapping applications, it can be really frustrating because what you'll do is you'll start finding all these different types of data, and whatever mapping application or GIS you're working with may not understand the data that you have. And you want to be able to use data that you're comfortable with, you want to be able to use a platform that you're comfortable with, and you want everything to be able to work together. So sometimes you'll need to move data around through different programs in order to get it to whatever your ultimate deliverable state is. And so later on we'll talk about converting data and then integrating the different applications so that you're able to achieve whatever goal it is that you have. But right now, just keep in mind that there's a bunch of different geographic data types, and don't let that be the end of it, because there are ways to convert all of it somehow or other. It's just a matter of knowing which program to go to in order to do that. So you don't have to be a master of GIS in order to work with geographic data. That's what I want to stress here. So moving on to the common geographic data types. I won't go into much detail about these, but just real quick, KML and KMZ files are recognized with a program called Google Earth, and a KMZ is essentially just a zipped up KML file with some other data that might be associated with it. GPX is just a standard GPS exchange format. This is a raw data type that you literally take from your GPS unit and put it right up into some sort of a mapping application or GIS. Shapefile is a really common data type in a program called ArcGIS. So is MXD, which is essentially just a map project that stores all sorts of extra information about your shapefiles and whatever other data layers that you might have in it. Geodatabase is another ArcGIS file, and so is Layer. And what's important to know about layers is that all mapping applications and GIS platforms are really just collecting layers of data and stacking them on top of each other in different orders. And so understanding how these layers work together is really how you do different types of spatial analysis, at least at the most simple form. So it's really important to recognize all of these as layers somehow or other. Next we'll move into some non-spatial data types, which are XLS and CSV, and also TXT sometimes, or text files. So XLS is just a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Common separated values is very similar to an Excel spreadsheet, except it doesn't have the pretty graph or the pretty table. It's just data separated by commas. So moving on to the digital elevation model, this is a very common raster data type that you might find if you're working with different elevation types, essentially, especially at some of the larger scales, regional and state and country scales. You'll work with digital elevation models a lot. And then DWG and DXF are basically just CAD files, or computer-aided drafting files. And all you really need to know about this is that before GIS was as popular as it is now, points, lines, and polygons were made with CAD. And so there's a lot of data out there that's in these CAD formats that often needs to be brought into a GIS. Or you have GIS data that you want to put into a CAD to manipulate. You can do finer design work with it, essentially. So really the most common data types that we need to be concerned about in this particular module, though, are the KML and KMZ. Again, we'll be working with those in Google Earth, as well as GPX, which is also works with Google Earth and other programs as well. Then the shapefile, which is primarily recognized with ArcGIS software. It's kind of the primary vector data type in ArcGIS. And then XLS and CSV and text, these are the non-spatial data types that are used in most mapping applications somehow or other. And what's important about these is that oftentimes you'll just have this raw data. So maybe you're going out and you're doing surveys and you put it all into a spreadsheet. Or you have a list of addresses with other associated attribute data of some sort. So you can take this raw data and you can put it into a GIS and then give it a spatial location or turn it into a spatial layer, essentially. and then you can do some sort of analysis with it or display it. So this is just a way, different ways of just taking your data from a text or spreadsheet format and displaying it spatially, essentially.